heaven. There's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you. Let's disturb the peace. We're trying to mind too cool. Disturb the peace. I'm a protector on a mission from heaven. There's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you. Disturb the peace. We're trying to mind too cool. Disturb the peace. I'm a protector on a mission from heaven. There's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you. Let's disturb the peace. We're trying to match your cool. Disturb the peace. I'm a protector on a mission from heaven. There's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you. Let's disturb the peace. We're trying to match your cool. Disturb the peace. Let's disturb the peace. Disturb the peace. From heaven, there's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you. Let's disturb the peace. We're trying to mind too cool. Disturb the peace. I'm a protector on a mission from heaven. There's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you. Disturb the peace. We're trying to mind too cool. Disturb the peace. I'm a protector on a mission from heaven. There's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you. Let's disturb the peace. We're trying to match your cool. Disturb the peace. I'm a protector on a mission from heaven. There's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you. Disturb the peace. We're trying to match your cool. Disturb the peace. Let's disturb the peace. Disturb the peace. From heaven, there's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you. Let's disturb the peace. We're trying to mind too cool. Disturb the peace. I'm a protector on a mission from heaven. There's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you. Disturb the peace. We're trying to mind too cool. Disturb the peace. I'm a protector on a mission from heaven. There's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you. Let's disturb the peace. We're trying to match your cool. Disturb the peace. I'm a protector on a mission from heaven. There's too much at stake to be quiet. Let's disturb the peace. Me and you. Disturb the peace. We're trying to match your cool. Disturb the peace.
Welcome to Disturbing the Peace. I'm your host, John Amanchukwu, coming to you live from Y Refi Studios. Today on the show, we will talk about the State of the Union. And if you watched it last night, you can tell that, there's a mess going on in America. Some people want law, freedom, and religious liberty, and some people just want communism, socialism, and Marxism. We're going to talk about that today. And I also want you to know this, that my guests today are prepared to go in deep on what we saw last night, which is a takeover of our Constitution. We're going to get into this. I'm going to bring on Will Chamberlain and Ron Coleman. You know, last night, Trump shined, but the Democrats whined. All here today on Disturbing the Peace. Where do we start? There's so much to talk about last night. Just watching the State of the Union and the bad actors and the people who just decided not to show up, the Democrats, because they were angry and upset about President Trump's, I guess, progress or moving America towards the right direction. It's insane. It really is. You know, there are many things that we can highlight and key in on about the State of the Union, but that's a time frame for us to hear from our president. I'm going to get my guest on soon, and we're going to talk about the particular details of what took place and what happened. One of the things that I can oftentimes see when President Trump mounts the lectern is that either people lock in or the demons begin to shriek. They begin to howl. They begin to scream out obnoxious things. You know, it's something when people like Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar are sitting in the audience screaming and shouting at the president as he gives his speech, you know, which is now regarded as the longest State of the Union address in the history of America. I think he went for an hour and 48 minutes. And so take that to the people out there who say that President Trump is too old to lead our country. We all know that Joe Biden didn't have it. You know, beyond age, Joe Biden had some, you know, real health challenges and issues, which I make no light of or any sport of or any fun of, because if we all live, we may, you know, endure some challenges in our mental faculties. But President Trump, you know, went for an hour and 48 minutes, didn't skip a beat. It was clear that his agenda hasn't changed. It's about being America first. Now, you can do with that what you want. There's some people who don't like how he's leading our country. And many of these people who feel that way, they feel that way solely because they think that socialism should be the answer for how we govern our country. But that's not it. We have founding documents. Our founding fathers fought for freedom and liberty. We have this thing called the Constitution. Hey, I'll say it. This may get me in trouble because, you know, if you sound like a Christian today and you are a Christian, you know, there's a lot of people out there who will bludgeon you for that. But I strongly believe that America was founded upon Judeo-Christian principles. And if you seek to protect that and to make sure that virtues and values and morality is a part of your message and what you stand for, there are people who will withstand you to your face. But I can care less about that. You know, when I think of the word of God in particular, Romans chapter 13, verse 1, it says, let every soul be subject unto the higher powers, for there is no power but of God. The powers that be are ordained of God. Whosoever therefore resisteth the power, resisteth the ordinance of God. And they that resist shall receive to themselves damnation. Hear me, for all of you militant people out there who want to tear down monuments and statues, reanalyze the Constitution and things of that nature. The powers that be are ordained by God. We have to get that through our skull. And lawlessness has become a doctrine in society. There are people who want to be governed by idolatry, by immorality, by sexual deviancy and perversion. But no, these things should be repelled. Our kids shouldn't go to school and find themselves in a position where a girl is forced to go to a locker room with a boy. What are we doing? Why are we letting people who are mentally and psychologically confused, why are they given access to kids as early as the age of 4 and allowed to read books to them? What are we doing? Why are we teaching our precious, tender hearts, our kids, to despise and abhor our country? These things are insane. And so I want to get into this whole conversation about the State of the Union. I'm going to bring on Will Chamberlain. He is the senior counsel at the Article 3 Project. He is a Georgetown University Law Center graduate and former attorney at Quinn, Emanuel, Urquhart, and Sullivan, and the Competitive Enterprise Institute. He revived Human Events as publisher and editor-in-chief and has worked with Governor Ron DeSantis' presidential campaign and executive office. Will Chamberlain, welcome to the show. I'm sure you have a lot to say about it. We want to dig in this morning and talk about that. Tell me something. What was your takeaway as you listened to it? Any constitutional themes that stood out to you?
I wouldn't say a constitutional theme stuck out to me. I was blown away by the Democrats' decision-making in terms of not standing for things I thought they should have obviously stood for. It really is striking that, they didn't stand for when President Trump said, do you prioritize the interests of American citizens over illegal aliens? They didn't stand when the mother of Irina Zarutska was applauded. And it struck me, it's like, okay, maybe this is who they think their constituents are. Maybe they think their constituents are illegal aliens and criminals. And, perhaps criminal illegal aliens is just too much for them. Who knows? But that was what struck me the most from watching the State of the Union, was the Democrats' reaction. Although I thought Trump gave a great speech, I thought that there was just a lot to, there really has been an enormous improvement in the country in the last year in terms of immigration. The border's completely secure. The economy's humming. Crime is way down all over the country. And that President Trump may take a lot of credit for that because of the surge he's done in places like Memphis and Washington, D.C. And also the broader work of ICE, which I think has probably done a lot for reducing crime. So I think people's lives are tangibly better and the places they live are safer. And President Trump has a lot to brag about. I think he did a great job of that. So it wasn't really a constitutional theme so much. It was the country's in a better place.
That he's done thus far in steering our country in the right place. We know when he took over office, the price of eggs was through the roof. He talked about beef being down substantially. He even talked about one city that he went to, one state, where gas was about $1.85. How was President Trump doing in leading our country?
Well, I think that when it comes to prices, I think it's the energy policy that's going to be the big driver, the big lever he's turned in the right direction. So if you open up energy and you start making clear that you're going to exploit energy on a broad basis, you're not going to punish it. You're not going to do things like have crazy environmental regulations. You're going to look to deregulate. Well, that's going to inspire confidence in people to go get more energy, and it's going to bring down the cost. And the cost of energy is the cost of everything, because basically everything needs to be transported. Everything you do requires energy. So, it's not surprising at all that you're seeing prices come down because he's been so aggressive about unleashing American energy.
I want to show you this first clip here. I want to get your reaction to it. This is President Trump calling the Democrats crazy.
Gallery tonight are Sage Blair and her mother, Michelle. In 2021, Sage was 14 when school officials in Virginia sought to socially transition her to a new gender, treating her as a boy and hiding it from her parents. Hard to believe, isn't it? Before long, a confused Sage ran away from home after she was found in a horrific situation in Maryland. A left-wing judge refused to return Sage to her parents because they did not immediately state that their daughter was their son. Sage was thrown into an all-boys state home and suffered terribly for a long time. But today, all of that is behind them because Sage is a proud and wonderful young woman with a full-ride scholarship to Liberty University. Sage and Michelle, please stand up. And thank you for your great bravery. And who can believe that we're even speaking about things like this? 15 years ago, if somebody was up here and said that, they'd say, what's wrong with him? But now we have to say it because it's going on all over numerous states without even telling the parents. But surely we can all agree no state can be allowed to rip children from their parents' arms and transition them to a new gender against the parents' will. Who would believe that we're even talking about this? We must ban it, and we must ban it immediately. Look, nobody stands up. These people are crazy, I'm telling you. They're crazy. Amazing. Incredible. Boy, oh boy. We're lucky we have a country. With people like this, Democrats are destroying our country, but we've stopped it just in the nick of time, didn't we? Huh?
All right. So, Will, what is your follow-up on this? What's your response?
I mean, obviously, President Trump is right. The Democrat policy is crazy. 15 years ago, it would have been unthinkable to even need to discuss it. So you're the preacher. I don't want to get too deep into theology, but it strikes me that Democrats have sort of invented a secular soul, and they are deep, profound believers in it, right? If you say you are born a male, but in reality your inner core is female or something. I mean, it strikes me as almost it's theological without God. I don't know what you think about that, but the fact that they're so attached to that belief. Despite the complete lack of any actual evidence for it, other than just the only evidence we have is that it's a known psychological phenomenon, right? Gender dysphoria is something that's been studied in the literature, but the idea that like any other that mental disorder is unique in actually being reflective of the truth of the person rather than something that's wrong with their brain or wrong with their mind is beyond me. And the fact that Democrats are still so attached to this and think it somehow makes them a good person to believe in this nonsense is really striking.
Secular soul. I want to hear more about that. Is that something that you find consistent within the framework of the Democrat Party? But keep in mind, many of these people purport to be Christians. They say they are believers. They claim to be Catholics, across the board. Some are Muslim, this secular soul. Talk about that more.
Yeah. So, right. So what is the thesis of the sort of people who promulgate transgender ideology? It's the idea that you are in a male, you can be in a male body or a female body, but in reality, your true self is the opposite gender of what your biological sex is. That's the theory. Okay. So how do you divine what this true self is? From on secular grounds, like, is there any physical manifestation of that? No. right? There's no physical manifestation. Like even if you're just arguing purely on secular grounds, looking at DNA and chromosomes, there's nothing there. It's literally just the person saying, this is what my true self is, without evidence, and that without material evidence. And that strikes me as a claim that, is essentially claiming the existence of a soul without any theology. So that's what I mean by a secular soul. Does that? I don't think that's trying to be like, I'm certainly not trying to, criticize the religious notion of souls, but it strikes me that what they're doing, progressives often find themselves doing this, where they claim to be atheistic and purely materialistic and reasonable, and yet find ways to reinvent theological concepts.
Yes, I agree with you 100%. You're taking a more intellectual way to unpack the deviancy within the Democrat Party. Isaiah chapter 5, verse 20 says, "Woe to those who call evil good and good evil."
Mm-hmm.
So this whole premise, this notion that a man can become a woman and a woman can become a man, this is a battle of good versus evil. And anatomically and biologically and based upon one's DNA, it's impossible. So it's a lie.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lie. The Democrat Party is comfortable lying to parents who may be in a position where they have a child who's battling what we call gender confusion. They have gender dysphoria, or it's a young girl and she doesn't want to, play with Barbie dolls, paint her fingernails. She wants to be a cowboy. She wants to run around in pants. She doesn't want to wear a skirt or a dress. And so the Democrat lie is, yes, that girl is, maybe she's a boy. She's born in the wrong body. And so when it comes to these things, we have to double down as much as possible. I'm leading a national campaign. I've now been to 23 states speaking out against gender theory and queer theory and presenting the details and the facts of what the Democrat Party has done to push these ideologies upon kids. Now, keep in mind, many of these books that I address, they're available for kids ages 4 and up. 4 and up. And at the end of the day, a kid that's 4 knows nothing about transgenderism. They know nothing about being cisgender. They know nothing about, the term non-binary. But yet and still, it has become a mainstay within the Democrat Party for them to push this insanity on children. Trump talks about it, and they don't even stand. They won't even celebrate it. And so, it's a lie. It's a big lie. It's one of the biggest lies of the 21st century. It's a lie that I don't think is going anywhere anytime soon.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up the books. I can speak from personal experience. I went to my local library with my 4-year-old, and we were in the board book section. The board books, these aren't the normal pages. These are the books that are with pages made out of, 1/4 centimeter thick cardboard. And there was a gender theory board book. And, these are books for 3 and 4-year-olds, because if you're older than 4, you know how to, turn a page and not rip the pages up in your book. And that's who they're teaching this stuff to. You're absolutely right. It's a lie. It's based on nothing real. And it's really destructive. And you also point out something, I think, which is a really interesting point, which doesn't get discussed enough, which is the idea that what Democrats are saying is that they're almost being regressive under their own framework, because what they're saying is, biological males have to engage in stereotypical boyish or manly behavior to be males. Otherwise, they're really women. Like, what? That's kind of archaic in a sense. Like, there are girls who act like tomboys and boys who are not stereotypically masculine, and that's okay. It's fine. Not everybody has to behave exactly the same way. It doesn't mean they need to get gender reassignment surgery. That's crazy.
Behavior health scientists would tell you the same thing. And it's the battle against God's truth. Genesis 1:26. and 27, we find out we're made in the image of God. God creates us male and female. I'm paraphrasing here. And then he blesses them. All right. So the only they, them that is blessed is the male and female construct. That's the only they, them that's blessed. Okay. And gender isn't fluid. It's frozen. Who froze it? The God that gave us absolute truth. And so what President Trump is doing, he's strategically trying to turn America right side up. We're upside down right now. We are. You know, this kind of rhetoric that we're engaging in at the moment, YouTube is not going to allow me to get full reach on the algorithm because I'm talking about something that heretofore was normative in our belief system. But since it challenges the narrative and goes against what wicked people want to do, it's oftentimes suppressed. I also want to show you this next clip here. Trump just sets these people up. All right. He sets them up. He says, if you agree with this statement, stand up. Take a look at this.
So tonight I'm inviting every legislator to join with my administration in reaffirming a fundamental principle. If you agree with this statement, then stand up and show your support. The first duty of the American government is to protect American citizens, not illegal aliens.
All right. This is about 30 seconds of clapping going on right here. And the Democrats don't stand. Will, what's going on here?
I think the Democrats have fallen into a terrible trap, and perhaps they're doing it voluntarily, and they really do think of illegal aliens as their primary constituents. It reminds me of when, I think just a few days before the State of the Union, there was a good bit on CNN where Scott Jennings was asking some Tennessee state representative if there's a single illegal alien he would name that he might deport, and he didn't provide an answer to it. They've convinced themselves that the act of deporting an illegal immigrant is itself immoral. So they're willing, so they're basically not willing to say that American citizens should be prioritized over illegal immigrants, because it's like they don't even recognize that they think that the idea that migration might be illegal is unjust. So that would mean the end of our country. It's a really terrible thing to be saying. And I don't think the broader general public agrees. I think that's why President Trump is the president. And, you know, one other interesting thing, if you look at some of the polling around immigration, you'll see that there's some independents who are kind of uneasy about the tactics of ICE. But then if you ask them, who do you trust more on immigration? They still say President Trump. And that's showing how crazy the liberals are, that the independents might, find ICE's tactics over aggressive and still would prefer that to what they see as a complete abdication of responsibility from the Democrats.
We know that early voting has started in some states for the midterms. What's the winning message? What's the secret sauce that's going to drive Republicans and independents to the voting booth? What are we missing here? What needs to be discussed? What needs to be said?
I would say that, the three that won the election were immigration, crime, and the economy. I think that's and that's the thing you always have to run on. You have to run on immigration, crime, and the economy. Those are the three big issues in 2024. Immigration still matters a lot. people are happy that the border is closed. You got to remind people of what things were like under the Democrats, the crazy scenes from the southern border and southern border towns that were completely overwhelmed by illegal immigrants. You need to run on this crime being down thing. That's really important. It makes people's lives better. And then the economy. And the economy is actually doing really well. And and especially with the tax cuts kicking in, and really people starting to feel it, things will be a lot better. Yeah.
What are your thoughts on tariffs? We just saw what the Supreme Court did to rule against President Trump's tariffs. How are we going to overcome that moving forward?
Well, President Trump actually has a lot of different authorities he can reach for when it comes to tariffs. And the Supreme Court said that one wasn't available to him, but there's others that have already been tested in the Supreme Court. Those are available to him. He'll have to do a little more work. His team will have to go through a little more hoops, but this is not the end of the tariffs. I mean, one simple example is that, even given President Trump's really broad tariff scheme, the Supreme Court ruling only affected about 2/3 of the tariffs collected. Still, 1/3 of them were collected under other authorities. And so it's, that's already being done. It can be done more.
In closing, as you watched the State of the Union last night, was there ever a moment where you said, I wish President Trump would have brought this up or that up?
Honestly, no. I'm really happy with where the president is going, and that's not something that occurred to me. He's bringing up the right things, and he's hitting the right notes in terms of talking about where the country is going. I've never been happier with the administration in my adult life. I think that it's really hitting on all cylinders. And I know I've heard some people are disappointed about various things, named the Epstein files or whatever. But if you actually take a 30,000-foot view about what this administration's doing, and especially if you go back to the platform that he ran on in 2024, you go back and read the 20 points. You'll see that he's either making really strong good faith efforts to achieve the goals in that platform, or he's already achieved them. And we're only a year in.
I know this is looking ahead a little bit further, but 2028, what's the winning ticket? Who carries on the MAGA movement, the America First movement for the Republican Party?
Vance Rubio. I think that's the ticket. I think that's going to be the ticket.
All right. Well, you've heard it here first from Will Chamberlain, Vance Rubio. Thank you so much, my friend, for joining the show. I'm going to have you back on.
Thank you.
God bless you. Listen, we have to be concerned about those today who are impacted by the economy. Yes, things are looking better. The light is shining at the end of the tunnel, but there are many Americans who are still contending with debt, and they need help. They need support. They need relief. Private student loan debt in the U.S. totals about $300 billion, my friends. About $45 billion of that is labeled as distressed. Why refinances distressed or defaulted private student loans that others won't touch with a 10-foot pole. Why will provide you with a custom loan payment. It's tailor-made just for you. It's not a cookie cutter model that only one group of people falls in. No. This is organized and strategically developed to solve your debt crisis and problem. Refi is not a debt settlement company, and they work with each borrower individually, tailoring each loan to each borrower's specific situation. You will not be calling a faceless call center. All you have to do is contact Refi at 888-YREFI85. That's 888-YREFI85, or log on to yrefi.com. That's yrefi.com. Next on Disturbing the Peace, I want to have some dialogue with Ron Coleman. Ron Coleman is the founder of Coleman Law, and he's a constitutional and commercial litigator. Just keep this in mind. The State of the Union isn't theater, my friends. It's a line in the sand, or at least it should be. And last night we saw that it was. It tells the American people exactly where this administration intends to take the country, economically, constitutionally, and on the world stage. This wasn't a cautious speech by President Trump. It was bold, it was unapologetic, and it laid out our vision for growth, strength, and restoring order. Joining me on the show now is Ron Coleman to talk about President Trump's State of the Union speech.
How you doing, John?
I'm doing wonderful. Ron, thank you for joining the show.
My pleasure.
Hey, give me your take. What's your feedback on last night? Are you happy with what President Trump had to say, or did he leave some money on the table?
I don't think you left anything on the table. I think you made a very good point in your intro. What we really have here is a truly dominant agenda-setting personality. President Trump took the stage last night and held the stage the entire time like a master, a person who is comfortable in his role, who knows what he can do and how he's going to do it. I almost felt at sometimes that he was almost too relaxed. He might be showing his age a little bit, but in terms of moving the ball forward on things that have to get to, listen, I would have liked it to be a little bit less of a campaign speech. Everyone that I said that to disagreed with me, said, Ron, that's what states of the union are like now. All right, I didn't write it. He was in the driver's seat, and he put the Democrats on the defensive, and he kept them on the defensive.
I want to dig in further on that to see what you're thinking. One of the things that he has a challenge with is the media reporting verbatim what he actually says. They do a wonderful job of cutting and splicing and finding ways to trip him up, to hang him up. And so it's almost as if, many of his messages that he delivers, it sounds like he's bragging, he's braggadocious, all right? He's touting how wonderful he is, which if he's doing that, he's also speaking about how wonderful America is and how wonderful we have it and how wonderfully engaged we should be in supporting his efforts, because if he's out there as our champion leading on the world stage, don't we benefit?
Well, I think we do. And again, in terms of leadership and in terms of stages, Donald Trump absolutely nailed it. And we know by now there's no reforming the corporate media in this country. They're not going to change their habits. They're not going to stop misrepresenting what is said in the grossest possible ways. They just are who they are. Thank God we have alternative media. We have podcasts like your podcast. We have social media. Trump has to say what his message is. I don't think that there is anything we can do to stop it. He certainly generated enough sound bites last night to keep everybody busy for a few weeks.
All right. I like how you put that. What parts of the State of the Union stood out to you as the strongest policy wins for the country?
I would say that his emphasis on restoring pride to the military. I don't understand why Democrats don't understand just how the majority wants America to be strong and to be proud of its armed services and the people who serve in the armed services. And that would be one. Obviously, the more you could talk about the economy in this situation, the better. He's doing great things, and immigration is such a slam dunk win. But what I think he really did it last night, I think was one of the more impressive moments, was he put it to the Republicans. They've got to pass the FACE Act. That's a big deal.
I want to pull up this next clip and get your reaction from it.
I'm asking you to approve the Save America Act. To stop illegal aliens and others who are unpermitted persons from voting in our sacred American elections, that cheating is rampant in our elections. It's rampant. It's very simple. All voters must show voter ID. All voters must show proof of citizenship in order to vote. And no more crooked mail-in ballots except for illness, disability, military, or travel. None. And this should be an easy one. And by the way, it's polling at 89%, including Democrats, 89%. And even the new communist mayor of New York City, I think he's a nice guy, actually. Speak to him a lot. Bad policy, but nice guy. Just said they want people to shovel snow. They got hit hard. Wants them to shovel snow, but if you apply for that job, you need to show 2 original forms of ID and a Social Security card. Yet they don't want identification for the greatest privilege of them all, voting in America. No, it's no good. No good. Both Republicans and Democrats overwhelmingly agree on the policy that we just enunciated. And Congress should unite and enact this common sense, country-saving legislation right now, and it should be before anything else happens. The reason they don't want to do it, why would anybody?
Mamdani makes it where you have to have 3 forms of ID to shovel snow in New York. But the Democrats are fighting against voter ID. What are your thoughts about this, Ron Coleman?
This is a slam dunk. This was one that it was a slow fastball down the middle. Donald Trump knocked it out of the park. He's got high polling on this. The only people who are against voter ID in this country are the people who are absolutely not interested in what Donald Trump has to say under any circumstances. So he pushed this. He pushed it well. This point about Mamdani and the ID in New York is very appealing. It's a rhetorical point that a lot of people have been making over the last couple of days. And to grab it and run with it at the State of the Union made perfect sense. It also, by virtue of 50 of the Democrats deciding to play hooky from the State of the Union address, he took some of the negative energy out of the room. He wasn't able to get that, that sort of, I mean, he was able to avoid, he didn't do it. The Democrats did it because they don't have anything to say. All they have is negativity, boycotting, not showing up. This was a great opportunity.
As it relates to economic growth, how do you think we're doing and what can we do better?
It's frankly surprising to me how well we're doing on the economic growth. It turns out that the recession that was predicted by everyone involving as a result of tariffs has not come about. On the contrary, there's been fantastic economic growth. I mean, you can't really ask for much more under the present circumstances. We still have fundamental inflation problems. Core inflation is going to be a problem for a while because so much money was printed and pumped into the economy. And also government, this is just basic Keynesian economics. Government has become so large at so many different levels that when you have that level of stimulation going on, and that includes, of course, stimulation through fraudulent abuse of government programs. It's all inflation is going to remain a threat, but the job creation, look, we're not going to know, I think, for another 18 months whether the segments of the sectors of the economy that are growing are all the ones that we want to grow. That's going to, but if you would have told me that the first year of this administration would have seen this kind of economic performance, I would have absolutely signed on for that.
Speaking of economic growth and what you're getting at in your statement about fraud, take a look at this next video. I'm sure America could use the $19 billion that was stolen by Somali immigrants. Take a look at this.
There's been no more stunning example than Minnesota, where members of the Somali community have pillaged an estimated $19 billion from the American taxpayer. Oh, we have all the information. And in actuality, the number is much higher than that. And California, Massachusetts, Maine, and many other states are even worse. This is the kind of corruption that shreds the fabric of a nation, and we are working on it like you wouldn't believe. So tonight, although started 4 months ago, I am officially announcing the war on fraud to be led by our great Vice President, J.D. Vance.
All right, so we're going to have the war on fraud led by J.D. Vance. What are your thoughts on this?
It's an interesting choice. It's an interesting, I mean, JD's a brilliant guy. He's also got a business background, so I like that. And of course, he's going to be bringing in fantastic people. Politically speaking, is this a winner? And keep in mind how much trouble Elon Musk had really making headway on this. And he's a rather bright fellow as well with considerable resources. So it's a challenge, and it isn't the kind of sexy assignment that you necessarily would think of as being the one to set up someone for the presidential run in 2028. So I was a little bit surprised by that, but they really do tend to think these things through in this White House.
The midterm elections are right around the corner. What's the winning message for conservatives and Republicans? What should we be focusing on?
Exactly what we're focusing on right now: immigration, law enforcement, support for law enforcement. There are missions, there are policies that are super critical to success of Republicans nationally, but they're not necessarily midterm issues, such as dealing with gerrymandering, dealing with voter fraud. I mean, those aren't election issues. You have to deal with voter fraud as legal issues. But I think that exactly what he's doing now, exactly the kind of things we're hearing about, an unquestioned support for law enforcement, people just really relate to that. That's a bread and butter issue. What's gone on in the in the blue cities with the abuse and the government sanctioned abuse of law enforcement and ICE, I think, has been a terrible idea. I'm not so sure that putting $1,000, $1,700 checks into people's hands is really all that powerful of a strategy, but maybe I'm just a little bit naive.
Got it. You see the family crisis that we have in America. It's a travesty. 70% of kids in some communities are born to a single parent. We see the overturning of Roe v. Wade, but the church is afraid to celebrate that. The left knows how to change terms and create a war on linguistics. We went from calling it what it was, which was abortion, to now it's called reproductive justice and reproductive rights. Where are we going as a nation and as a country when families are broken?
This is really the issue. It's the issue that Donald Trump can lead on somewhat, and he has. Even though he is not the model of the family man, he might be now, but his history is such that he's not going to be that guy. But he said a number of things during this address about the importance of God, the importance of religion, to our culture, and to our spiritual well-beings. That's a level of leadership that has to come from the top. But at the end of the day, people who want conservative values, conservative policies to work in America have to live conservative lives. The change has to come from below. It has to come from us. And conservatives can't be people who participate in hookup culture, can't be people who shack up with their purported future spouses who they never marry, or even if they do marry them. It's a really, really hard thing, John, as you know, because people like to do what they want to do, and they feel awkward if they do things the old-fashioned way. But there is a growing sense among a lot of traditional Christians in this country, and certainly traditional Jews, that we need to make it a matter of public record that the direction that the culture has gone is not a direction that we're going in, and that we're going to live our lives the way God wants us to.
Can you lean in on Jewish culture and how the family is viewed, and why certain morals and values are passed on, and they don't come across as, old fashioned, to be wholesome, to be virtuous, to be kind, to be upstanding, to be devout? That's not old fashioned to me. It's just, it's righteousness. Can you lean in on that?
Well, it's righteousness. It's what the scholars used to call imitatio Deus. What we look in the Bible and we see, how does God conduct himself? We should conduct ourselves in the same way. He is generous. He is giving. He created our world. He created a beautiful world. He created challenges in that world. Yes, it's true, but we're his children. He gives us great opportunities and he gives us life. And we need to ask ourselves, what's the godly thing for us to do? And most of us are not capable of answering that question without guidance from our traditions, from our heritage. It's a very American thing to want to figure out what the right thing is to do by yourself. We're independent people. We don't believe in monarchy. We believe that we should make up our minds and vote about what our policy should be and who our leaders should be. But we have to understand that we didn't invent this world, we didn't invent this culture, and even the sensibilities that we use to answer the questions of what's the right thing for me to do are in and of themselves the result of where we come from and who made us who we are.
I'm asked this question.
Yeah, I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
You go ahead.
No, I mean, so the point is, you need to look and ask if you think of yourself as someone whose judgment about moral issues is worthwhile, ask yourself, where did I learn it from? What are the sources of that? What can I do to get closer to them and understand them and live them better?
I agree with that wholeheartedly. I'm oftentimes asked this question as a Black Christian conservative. I'm asked, why do so many Black people support the Democrat Party? And so I have the opportunity to put you on the hot seat and ask you a similar question. With the biblical tenets of the Christian faith and Judaism, knowing what the Word of God says, why do so many even devout Jews support the Democrat Party policies when they don't align?
Jews, or observant Jews, are well over 80% Republican. Probably the most pro-Trump city in America in the 2024 election was Lakewood, New Jersey, where two of my children live. Major rabbinical academies located there. There are some groups that, for political reasons, living in blue places, feel that they need to play ball. And that, I think, frankly, that's a moral mistake. One that's
what do you mean there by playing ball? I want to hear more about that.
Well, listen, Jews have relationships with the Democratic Party in places like New York and New Jersey, which again have essentially become one-party states, and leaders within the community feel that they need to have open channels and even run candidates as Democrats in order to look out for the community's interests. And I understand that calculus, but the moral cost is considerable. That's why no one asks me political questions. They ask me philosophical questions like you do, and sometimes legal questions, I hope.
Well, no, I want to hear more about this. I admire how values and morals are passed down in the Jewish community and the Jewish culture, how family is the catalyst for economic growth and prominence. That's something that many other communities could mimic. But politically speaking, sometimes, as you mentioned and alluded to, there's some interest. Sometimes interest can lead our decisions in how we vote. I believe this, that you shouldn't pray one way and then vote another. And that becomes a problem, not only for Jews, but also for Christians and even for Catholics.
Sure.
And so how do we get to the heart of this issue to make sure, even as you were saying earlier, that you can't call yourself a conservative, but you don't do conservative things. The Bible says, be ye holy, for I am holy. And
Right.
so how do we make sure that shows up, not solely in our worship, but also in our actions and what we do to show that we are the concerned Good Samaritans?
Well, I will tell you one thing, John. In our community, a non-negotiable aspect of making our community a community of God-fearing people is education. We simply have no use for the public schools, and I don't really think any conservative of any creed has any business sending their kid to public schools anymore. I don't care how much you need that second income. If you need a second income, then you're going to have to find a private school. And if you're a Christian, there are plenty of schools for you. There's certainly plenty of Catholic schools, Jewish Judean day schools, or yeshivas like my kids were. Public schools are a travesty. They are destroying this country. The engine for that destruction, to a large extent, is teachers' unions. And it sounds like almost a tactical answer to a strategic question. You asked a much bigger question, but our children come out of school immensely differently minded from those who come out of public school. Their focus, their ability to work, their focus on their work, their respect for elders and for authority figures and for tradition are completely different. And even without necessarily having this, that, or the other kind of so-called degree, they're often, to a very large extent, tremendously successful in business, well-spoken and courteous and polite and dutiful, because of how school shapes them. So that's, when you consider how much of your early life is spent in school, that is far more of a priority. That's where we put our money. It's more important than sports stadiums, more important than cable TV. And my kids didn't get anywhere near smartphones. Most of them, I think, still actually, as adults, don't even have smartphones because they've got life to live. They're not representing. They're not spectating. They're living it. They're raising their children. They're doing what their duty is to their communities and to their families and to God.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is Ron Coleman on Disturbing the Peace. He's talking about the issues of our day, the things that matter the most, the family, the nuclear family, the bedrock and the foundation for Western civilization if we are going to keep Western civilization whole. Ron, thank you so much for coming on the show. I'm going to have you back on again.
Thanks so much, John.
I want to deep dive into more of the Jewish culture and how you all make sure that your pedigree, your children, hold fast to the beliefs of your community in a culture that is led by diabolical minions who seek to eviscerate God, the one and true holy God.
Thanks, John.
Thank you so much for joining me. God bless you, my friends. Listen, what a wonderful show today to have Will Chamberlain on and Ron Coleman. Listen, I believe this, that the true currency of heaven is not money. It's fidelity to God. We have to make sure, that after we become economically savvy, after we find creative ways to reduce inflation, reduce the cost of eggs and beef and things of that nature, provide housing for those who need it and healthcare, we need to make sure that we keep God first. The Bible says, blessed is the nation whose God is the Lord. And so, yes, the public school system has done a number on our children. And this is why I'm a strong proponent for school choice. If you send your child off to the public school system in a vacuum where they are being taught to abhor and disagree with normative beliefs, parents, you are responsible. And so, yeah, you have to take on that second job or that third job. You have to lobby for policy that makes it where, school choice is more attainable in your city and or state. The Bible tells us in Proverbs 22, verse 6, to train up a child in the way that he should go, and when he's old, he will not depart from it. Parents, you are responsible for setting your kids off on the right path. You are responsible for that. Ultimately, you are their initial catechizer. You train them, you develop them, you mold their hearts to be submissive to the God of the Bible. Well, my friends, that's it today on Disturbing the Peace. Do me a big favor, like, share, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Listen to the show wherever podcasts can be found, and set your notifications on all platforms, especially YouTube. I'm signing off now from Whine Studios. God bless you and God bless America.